All right, Algebra 1. This video will look at a few more complicated examples of finding domain and range of a graph. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with this example here. So taking a look at this graph, once again, we're deciding if the graph is a function first and then finding the domain and range in set builder notation, like we've seen already. Okay, so I'm going to move myself here. So the first thing we're going to look at is this graph right here. Okay, it's a little curvy. That's all right. First of all, is it a function? Let's go ahead and throw on our vertical lines here. Once again, as long as the red vertical lines intersect only once for every time on the blue graph or the blue curve, that means it is a function. So in this case, one red line, one place on the blue graph, one red line, one place on the blue graph, everywhere here, that means it is a function. Okay, one input for every output. So we go ahead and remove these. Let's find our domain and range. To find the domain, we have to once again look at the endpoints. We've got one at -3, 0, and another one at 1, -4. Okay, once again, that's important for us to build up on our set notation here. Okay, so it's important to know that we have an open circle at the left side here. That means we don't include -3 or 0 when building our domain or range. So our domain consists of every point between -3 and 1. That means we can just write it as a compound inequality like we have over here. So -3 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 1. Okay, we've seen this kind of notation before. If I grip my laser pointer, we've seen this before in the previous unit on compound inequalities. Likewise, when we look at the range, we look at the minimum and maximum values here. In this case, it's the absolute minimum and the absolute maximum. So in this case, that's where we can build our range here. It's all these values between 0 and -4. So my range values is going to be an and inequality again, -4 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 0. And once again, we can include 0 here because we know the graph touches the x-axis, looking at these points. Okay. So now we look at this graph here. First of all, is it a function? If I draw in my vertical lines here, take a look. These vertical lines intersect with this curve more than once. That means there's more than one output for every input. That means it is not a function. Okay? So now I'm going to try finding the domain even though I know this is not a function. Look at this vertex here, the endpoint. Okay? And we also have it going on forever to the right. That means we're looking at all the values from -3, because that's what this value is right here, between -4 and -2. That's -3, and it's everything to the right. So it's all my values x that are greater than or equal to -3. If we're trying to find the range, we take a look at the arrows here. Okay? So the arrows imply that they're going to keep going upward for all of these. Okay, we can assume that they continue upward on both ends. That means that my range is going to be all of my numbers beyond the scope of the graph, including those that are in the graph. So that's once again all real numbers for y for my range. Looking at one more example, take a look at this curve. We're going to determine if it's a function, then find the domain and range. If I throw in my vertical lines, notice how it only intersects once again for each value that I have for my input. One vertical line is my input, and it only intersects with that curvy line once. So it is a function because it only goes once. One input goes to exactly one output, unlike in the last example. So if I remove these, and I try to find my domain and range. So the domain, we have one local maximum here, one local minimum here, or relative maximum, one relative minimum. But then we also have these arrows. Remember, arrows imply that they go on forever. So the arrows help us because that means that my domain is all real numbers for x. And then for my range, same thing. I have relative max and min, but the arrows help me out here. That means that they go up and down forever, which means my range is also all real numbers. If you have questions on this, make sure you come and see me. Hope you guys have a great day.